the next week or so a little bit of a series on what does this industry actually need, because the industry itself that we work in, and the industry I'm talking about is the joinery cabinet manufacturing industry. If you're watching me, you're probably in the industry. If you know anything about us at the Joinery Coach, you know what we're talking about. If you don't and you're watching me, you're either interested or you're not interested. If you're not interested, you're probably not in the cabinet or joinery manufacturing industry, and that's okay. So I'm here to talk to those of you that are probably business owners in the cabinet making, joinery production, shop fitting, furniture production industry. Today I'm here to talk to you about a very, very interesting topic that continues to come up time and time and time again. I've been coaching and consulting in this industry since about 2002, and this topic has come up ever since then, and even before then, when I was running my own kitchen cabinet manufacturing business, this was a conversation. The conversation today that I wanted to talk about is, do you really need to hire a highly skilled tradesman? This is a conversation that dominates a lot of these social media platforms. People that are joinery business owners often, very, very often, can be read or seen or heard saying, I just need to hire a cabinet maker. I just need to find this amazing, highly skilled person and just throw them at it and everything will be fine. And then I can just go over here and run the business. Now, I just want to ask everybody just to pause for a second. And let's just stop and think about this thing that we're all saying. We know, because I can hear all the comments, I can hear all the feedback that's actually happening already before I even start talking. We know that there are some tradesmen out there, tradespeople, male, female, doesn't matter who you are, that are not great at what you do. And it is true that some of the skills that are coming out of the trades and becoming ticketed tradespeople are not to the level that they should be. We know that's true, but let's just stop for a second and say most tradespeople have the ability to be good tradespeople. The unfortunate thing is when they're thrown into the job, they don't prove it or show it or become it. And that's the problem, right? That's ultimately the problem that occurs is we hear business owners always saying, well, I need to find this great tradesperson and hire them. But then when we really peel back the layers, we will discover stories about a joinery and cabinet shop business owner that's hired tradespeople over the years, and then will rant on about how they were terrible, that you can't find good skills these days, but then in the next breath they're going, well, I just need to hire a tradesman, and it's a rinse repeat, it's a Groundhog Day, it's the same thing over and over and over and over again. So other industries of the manufacturing persuasion have already been through this growth development, this maturity stage, let's say. This is actually a maturity stage that our business, our industry, needs to work through. It might take a generation or two before we get there, but I would love to be able to accelerate it quicker than that. And here's the hard, cold facts of the matter. Just a little bit of background on this. The Joinery Coach is a coaching business, and we coach businesses that run cabinet making and joinery businesses. We've got over 40 businesses in our program. We've coached literally hundreds and hundreds of businesses, and we've had wild success and continue to do that. And the people that are in our membership programs are getting wild success by doing things differently, by thinking about things differently. I'm talking to you here today about things that you should be thinking about differently. I'm not talking to you about anything that I take any risk at all talking about, because we already have this amazing group over here that are doing great work, achieving success with the things that I'm here to talk to you about. If you're not in that group, the chances are you might say, I don't believe it, or that's great, but, or you might have some doubt. And I get that. That's perfectly fine. But I'm here to tell you that I don't really care, because we already know that the amazing group that we're working with is getting great results, and I'm giving you some of this stuff for free. Whether you choose to pick it up and think about it and apply it in your own business or ask me for some more help is entirely up to you. But if you just completely dismiss it as garbage, that's up to you as well. Doesn't affect me one way or the other. But I'd love it if it does help you in some way. That's what I would really love. So what we know is that other industries have been through this evolution already. And we look at them and they're right in front of us, and yet we don't often make that connection. And I'll just make a couple of examples here. I'll just give you a couple of examples. Industries like the fast food industry. McDonald's, everybody knows the McDonald's story. There's been movies made of it. We've talked about it forever. But it is very, very true. It's one of those industries where if we go back far enough, if we were thinking about how does someone produce a meal in a restaurant, that was always a chef. That was always a cook. That was always a highly trained professional person. And they were hard to find, and they were highly paid, and they were these unicorns that we say we're looking for in our cabinet business. And those people still exist. Those highly trained chefs are still out there. There's no question about that. But the vast majority of restaurants, and certainly when we talk about fast food, they've revolutionized how food can be produced. And the reality is, that's a really good example of a manufacturing process. Okay, it's food, but it's still a process. It's still a manufacturing process where when that industry took it and broke it down and said, why don't we just create a standard process? Why don't we make this easy? Why don't we make this thing that was difficult easy by creating standard processes, making it repeatable? And then all of a sudden, where something that was previously really difficult and easy is now not difficult and easy, and you don't need this high skill for it. So, good example of the fact that the highly skilled chefs and cooks are still out there. They're still there, and they exist where they're needed, and they thrive. And they're, there's the Gordon Ramsays. There's all these chefs that you can rattle them off. You already know who they are. They're still out there, and they're still doing well. But there aren't masses of them because they're not needed in masses anymore. If they were, when we compare the cost of goods and the thing that you charge, the price that you charge for a meal, if those highly skilled people were still required in the kitchen the way they were 100 years ago, the restaurant would go broke within the first day because it's unbalanced. The level of skill and the cost of that skill compared to how things are today is off the charts. So if we look at another industry, we talk about, let's say, car manufacturing. It wasn't that long ago that you needed to be a mechanic. Well, now if you go into most car manufacturers and you look at how do they produce a high-performance motor, most people in that department are not mechanics, but they have been trained on how that particular car manufacturing company, I'm not going to name names, we're not going to talk about Holden, not here anymore, we're just saying that particular situation where you have a highly complex process, which is creating a high-performance motor, most people are not mechanics, but they are highly trained. They're trained by the company that creates the process to make the thing. And there may be a few people that are at a high level or team leaders that are mechanics. That's just the reality of what's around us. That's just what lives and breathes around us on a regular and ongoing basis. So this is the maturity that we need to go through as an industry. I'm a cabinet maker. I've worked as a cabinet maker for a good part of the first working part of my life. I am more passionate about creating more cabinet makers in this world than anybody can possibly be. What I know, in order to do that, to create more cabinet makers, to create more people in trades, we first have to create successful businesses. We have to have the business success first, and that starts with the business owner taking on the fact that we've got to have a business mindset, not a tradesman mindset. We have to have a business mindset, and we have to look at what does your business need first and foremost to be successful. It does not need 5 or 6 highly skilled tradesmen just thrown at rudimentary basic tasks. I always use the comparison, imagine hiring 5 Gordon Ramsays and just throwing them in your kitchen. Just imagine that for a second. What a shit show that would be. You would have nothing but arguing and carrying on and people leaving. That's what would happen. And the funny thing is, we see that happening in a lot of cabinet and joinery businesses. Friction amongst the team, people that don't want to communicate, people saying that they're going to do it their way, they're not going to do it the other guy's way. We see this friction because we've got, for a large degree, we've got high levels of skill in the wrong places and not the right level of skill in the right places. So for a business to have a need for a tradesman, first of all, you have to have a need for a tradesman of that skill level. And the harsh reality is, in today's world where we have your standard manufacturers of cabinets, where you have somebody in the office drawing in software, now that whole programming on the CNC machine is now gone. We don't have programmers anymore programming on CNC machines because they're not needed. That side of the business has evolved to say, we're going to teach people how to use the software to draw the kitchen, and you don't need to program anymore. You don't need to be that highly skilled technical person that knows how to program the software. You just need to learn how to draw the kitchen in the software, and the program will do the rest for you. And then it sends the information to the CNC machine, and the CNC machine figures it out from there. No human intervention needed. But you do need to be the person that's doing the drawing. And there does need to be some level of technical skill at that stage. Now, I've worked for Planet in Canada for a few years, and we have been integrating CNC machines and working around CNC machines for 20 years. I can tell you for sure that as a tradesman, none of my skills as a tradesman is being challenged if I'm running a CNC machine. So you do not need a tradesman running a CNC machine. That's just a hard, cold fact of the matter. In fact, of the literal hundreds of businesses that I've worked with over the years and helped them put the right people in the right places and create procedures on how to have great outcomes at different positions in their business, when we've actually written a clear procedure of how somebody works at a CNC machine, we can hire a very good person with virtually no education or no skill, but just somebody that's really capable and switched on and just simply wants to work, just wants a job. And when you can give them a really clear process of how to do this thing, run a CNC machine, put a board on, push a button, go start, and make sure that they're very, very clear on how to keep the machine tuned up and what it sounds like and the tools sharp and all the touchdowns done and all that sort of stuff. None of that, and I'm sure if you guys are being honest with yourself, none of that you were taught in trade school anyway. None of that had anything to do with becoming a tradesman. That is a simple process. It's a simple task that virtually anybody that's reasonably capable can be taught to do. So, first of all, a cabinet shop in today's world typically has a need for a person running a CNC machine that's a good person, going to look after the machine, going to show up for work, all that stuff. And they can usually do a really good job between the CNC and the edge bander. Again, we have to have good people here, but they do not need to be tradespeople. I will tell you also that I've seen plenty of tradespeople in these positions. If you're a tradesperson and you did 4 years in your apprenticeship to become a tradesman and you're happy in that situation, I would suggest maybe you shouldn't have done an apprenticeship because there's nothing in that role that's actually challenging the skills that you just acquired that it took you 4 years to get. But I'll also say to you that I've seen more often tradesmen put into that position, and within the span of a few months, they're really bored. And they're doing a terrible job because they're bored. They're not even being challenged, right? So we'll move on to the next point of production. Parts typically move from production to the assembly area. So what do we have in assembly area? We have some very basic rudimentary things. We've got square boxes being put together. So let's just move out of the cabinet industry for a second and let's go into any other industry that does rudimentary processing. There's quite a few industries that do basic production of things that do not require any trade skills whatsoever, and they are very similar to putting square boxes together. And they do very, very well by creating a very straightforward process of how do you assemble this cabinet? How do you assemble this thing, this assembly here? Production assembly is something in other industries that, again, don't require any trade skill level of requirement. So when you're talking about the basic rudimentary things at cabinet assembly, putting square boxes together, when you have a really good construction method that makes assembly easy, in other words, you don't have to get jigs out to locate parts. You don't have to be measuring things with a tape measure. You don't have to be doing all of that, because if we're really utilizing our CNC machine and how it's being programmed, it's positioning the parts in the right way. It's doing all the machining at machining, and assembly, we're just assembling. So here's one of the big takeaways for you today. If you can engineer out the skill needed at assembly by utilizing your investment in your software in your CNC machine, then you decrease the requirement in two areas. You decrease the requirement at your CNC machine, and you decrease the skill level requirement at assembly, because it makes the assembly painfully easy and most people can't get it wrong. One of the construction methods that you can see in my YouTube channel, if you're watching this on YouTube from quite a few years ago, is an assembly method that literally a 12-year-old could put together. But if you have an assembler on a bench doing it that is happy assembling, they're happy doing it as well because it's easy. And so when you make the easy things that should be easy to do, even for the highly skilled people that might be doing it, that is also a good thing. So I'm saying two things here. I'm saying you actually don't need tradesmen, cabinet makers at assembly because that's not a trade skill. But there are other areas of your cabinet business where you might need a tradesman. It might be some of the curved work you're doing, or the bifold doors, or the veneer layup, or some of the things where your actual trade skills are being tested and are being required. But that does not mean that you have to hire tradesmen for everything just to do those one or two things occasionally. There are literally hundreds and hundreds of good people out there looking for work that are totally capable of doing these things in your business. And frankly, when you actually take this on board as a business owner, you're doing things for the good of the business. And then you're starting to look at things with a fresh set of eyes. And you're saying, okay, what's the right skill at the right place? Well, certainly putting a cabinet maker with a ticket running your CNC machine is not the right person in the right place. That's overskilling. That is, it's just not necessary. So my view of the industry, we hear this topic about we have a skills shortage. I actually don't believe at all we have a skills shortage. I believe what we have is an industry challenge where we're not running businesses the right way anymore. If you go back far enough to when apprentices were in cabinet shops and becoming cabinet makers, the businesses that took on apprentices would freely allocate time away from work, and they would take their highly skilled people and assign them to the apprentice. They would invest. They knew that the apprentice was not there for production reasons. They treated apprentices how apprentices needed to be treated, which was, we're here to teach you how to do this thing. Now, unfortunately, in today's world, that isn't happening. So we've got apprentices, by and large, that are being treated as cheap labor. They're being treated as, well, I hire them because they're inexpensive. And if you're a business owner, you've really got to stop and think about this. If you actually hire an apprentice to do something that, first of all, that a highly skilled person should do, well, that's not going to work. If you hire an apprentice to do something that you think a cabinet maker should do, or you're teaming up your apprentice with your cabinet maker thinking it's going to affect production in a positive way, you're actually decreasing the effectiveness of your tradesman because they have to teach the apprentice. So the whole approach right now to apprentices is going in the wrong direction and has gone in the wrong direction for a long time. My approach is, let's make your business strong first. So let's look at your business and figure out what it needs. You probably don't need apprentices or tradesmen in many of the positions. So let's get the right people in the right places. We can do that by helping you with a great marketing strategy to attract great people to your business. Get the right people doing the right things. Create processes that they can follow. How do you run a CNC machine? How do you do edge banding? Make sure that there is really clear quality guidelines. So if you're going to run a CNC machine, make sure you know how much chipping is too much and gets rejected. If you're running an edge bander, does that edge look okay or does it get rejected? If you're going to assemble cabinets, we have to know what square and level is. Yes, all that sort of stuff. But again, we can teach most people this pretty easily. And get your business so that it's viable first. Get your business so that it's a strong, sustainable, viable business. For those businesses that are in that situation, and we have quite a few of them that are working with us in our program that have good, strong profit margins, a regular, reoccurring 20% net profit margin every year, running $2 or $3 million a year, great team strategies, those sorts of things. Now the business owner has the ability to comfortably look at hiring apprentices because we can comfortably say that we're actually giving back to the industry. We can comfortably say that I'm not hiring the apprentice because I need an increase in production. We can comfortably say that we feel good because we're giving back to the industry by allocating time to the apprentices and nurturing them along. It has gotten too far where tradesmen will tell us how stupid apprentices are, how they've got no this and no that these days. They've got no ideas. That's probably true, but what it's saying more about is how we're actually treating them. And of course, there's bad eggs. Of course, there's some people that just are not going to follow instruction. But it's how we're approaching them. It's how we're teaching them. And once we can change that, we will start seeing a change in the outcomes. But the reality is, if we keep approaching things the way we are right now as an industry, the direction is not a good direction. We're not going to end up in a good place. And so, you know, the reality is, your business probably doesn't need a tradesman. But if it needs a tradesman, make sure that they're doing tradesman skills. Make sure that you're hiring them and challenging them to do this tradesman skills. I believe that tradespeople with higher level skills are needed mostly at the installation side of things. That's really where the challenge is. I can promise you that when you start getting into manufacturing mindsets and thinking, we can make most things in joinery production really basic and rudimentary that almost anybody could do, as long as they have good guidelines and they're managed well. Yes, you can't just let them do it. There has to be a level of management overseeing them and holding them to the quality levels and making sure they stay on the path. They're never going to be good people that just leave them and let them go. There is, you know, I hate to say it, but there is a level of requirement to have management involved here, or guidance. Yeah, but those are usually your tradesmen. Those are your higher skilled people. I am speaking from a position where this isn't guesswork anymore. We've got a very large number of really successful joinery businesses that are just finding a huge amount of success doing things differently. So you can be in one of two camps. You can say what I've just said is a load of BS, perfectly fine. You're probably not the sort of person that we're going to work with quite yet. Or you can say, hey, that's kind of interesting. I wouldn't mind learning more about that and maybe getting some of the success that I haven't been able to get over the years. These are all choices that you would make. But from our perspective, we live the reality every day of helping businesses actually achieve success this way, by getting the right people doing the right things at the right time in the right way. And we just simply don't need these tradespeople everywhere. And we know that there aren't tradespeople out there to be hired anyway. So for this industry to evolve and grow and mature, we have to take on process thinking. We have to figure out how we can take the things that we're doing, generally speaking, on a day-by-day basis in the cabinet and joinery production, and make them easy to do so that most people of an average skill level could potentially do them. When you do that, when you take on that skill level, that thinking, that methodology, you will find greater success in business, because you will be able to find more people and more options to be able to help you create success in business. Hopefully this has been helpful and interesting, maybe a little bit controversial for you. I'm not sure which one, but it certainly is. In our world, it is reality and it is truth. And if you'd like to chat more about it, check us out, website, thejoinerycoach.com. If you jump onto the Contact Us, you can have a chat with me. Or better yet, if you'd like to jump into our Facebook group, the Joinery Business Hub, we can have some chats in there. All right, hopefully you have an excellent day, and this has been interesting, fun, and exciting, maybe useful, and we'll see you again real soon. Cheers.